Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Alberta Culture Days. This is our third workshop in about 4 days, and we are so excited to bring you Jay Benoit today. My name is Karen, and I am the Cultural Development Specialist at the Jubilee Auditorium. Before we start today, I'd like to take a moment to think about stories and how we tell stories and where we tell stories in the classroom, perhaps at home, in the community, but where we tell these stories and who is telling the stories. So today we really want to acknowledge the stories and people who came before us. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories in Alberta of the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. I hope today you have a moment to think about the story you're telling. I'm super excited to introduce to you Jonathan Love, our Executive Director. Hi, Jonathan.
Well, good morning, Karen, and good morning, everybody. I want to also welcome you to Culture Days on behalf of the Government of Alberta. We're a part of the Ministry of Culture, Multiculturalism, and Status of Women. And on behalf of Jube School, which is a part of the Alberta Jubilee Auditoria Society, of which I'm the Executive Director. We're a lucky group that gets to work with the Government of Alberta to run the Jubilee Auditoria in Calgary and in Edmonton. And we really sincerely hope to see all of you at a live event sometime soon to celebrate some great performing culture in our province. It is a little bit of a crazy time, I think, that we're all going through right now, but I'm really excited that we can share with artists online. And we're so excited to have Jay. Good morning, Jay. And we want to, continue to share in Culture Days and in all of the stuff that we do at Jube School. So we're really excited that you're going to be joining us. Until next we meet, I just want to mention that we do have a couple of great events coming up at the Jubilees. On October 1st in the Edmonton Jubilee, we're going to invite some of the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, and the historian laureate Amber Paquette will be joining us. And in Calgary on October 2nd at the end of the week, we'll have Land's End Ensemble and some of the incredible world-class pianists from Honens. So we're excited that live events are coming back to the Jubilee, but what we're here for right now is a little bit of art and celebrating together. So I want you guys to make sure that you're following us. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how you're going to do that, because we've got some great stuff coming up, especially around Halloween. In fact, I'm going to throw to Carly right now. Carly's going to tell you how to follow Jube School online. So enjoy your morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
That's right. Good morning, everyone. We are on social media on any platform you can imagine. We've got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. We're at Jube School, so go ahead and give us a follow so that you're up to date on everything that's going on. As we progress through this workshop, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get them to Jay right away. And if you need to pause at all, go for it. You can pause the video. This is a live video, but it can be paused. So if you need that, go for it. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our artist for today, Jay Benoit.
Hi. So my name is Jay. I'm really excited to be here. We're doing a really cool project. We're doing this owl that was on the screen before. So we're going to be drawing the sky. I have two cameras here, so that's why this thing is like right in my face. But I want to thank Jube School and I want to thank Alberta Culture Days for having me. I'm really excited to do this with everyone. So I'm a local artist. I live in Calgary and I do paintings and drawings of animals and nature. And then I also teach. So I teach people how to draw animals and nature and little projects. For today, the supplies that you'll need, just so to make sure you have everything, you'll need a Sharpie marker. A black one is good. And you'll need some oil pastels. So the colors that I have, if you want, your owl can look like mine and you can use the same colors, but you can use different colors if you want to too. and I'll tell you about that. For mine, I'm going to be using like a dark blue oil pastel, a light blue oil pastel, a brown one, a very tiny brown one, and a white. But you can use different colors. Like let's say you wanted to have kind of a purple owl or a purple and pink one, like this one behind me. You could have like a dark purple and a light purple, or a dark purple and a pink. It's just important that you have like one dark color and one lighter one. And then you can have like a brown or something if you want. And the white is really important. So make sure that you have this one. If you don't have oil pastels, you can also use crayons, and those are gonna work pretty good too. So you can use those. Pencil crayons will also be okay. We need watercolors. So just like regular watercolors, you can have a bunch of different colors if you want, or just a couple, doesn't really matter. And a brush, paper towel, water, you know, things to paint with. And I'm using watercolor paper today just because we're using watercolor, but if you just have like a regular paper or something that's a little bit like heavier, you can use that too. And then what I've done with mine, I'll show you, is I've taped it on all four sides. And what that does is when we add the watercolor on top of our drawing, the paper is going to stay flat. And if you leave it like that, tape down until it's completely dry, your drawing is going to be flat instead of curled. But you know what? If you don't have tape, your drawing edges are just a little bit curly and it doesn't even matter. That's fine too. Okay, I think that's it for supplies. So if anyone has questions about that, put it in the chat. Carly will let me know. The next thing I want to talk about is just drawing in general. So some people think drawing is really hard. Some people think it's easier. But pretty much what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing it step by step today. And I'm going to show you each step, and I'm going to show you how a drawing can be broken down into basic shapes. So anytime you're drawing anything, you're really just using a few shapes and putting them together to make something. And the better you get at it, the more you practice, the more you can like see those shapes more clearly. You can see how big they are, you can see what direction they're going, but it's always just about basic shapes. So sometimes you look at something and it looks like really complicated and you don't know where to start. And that's where I'm gonna help you today. We're gonna start step by step. So, we're going to be using something called the shape families. Maybe you guys have seen this before. It's by a woman named Mona Brooks. So the shape families are just 5 different families of shapes, and it seems really simple and really easy. And it is really simple and really easy. So you just take these shapes and you put them together. So the first family is the dot family. So these are just circular types of shapes, like a dot, an oval, an ellipse shape, which is like longer, and a kidney shape. And these are all filled in, so see how they're colored inside. And the second family is the circle family. So these are the same, like a circle, an oval, an ellipse, which is like a long circular kind of shape. And a kidney kind of looks like a bean, like a kidney bean. And these are the same, right? Except that they're not filled in. And then the next one is the straight line family. So these lines can be fat, like this first one here, or they can be skinny, and they can go in any direction. So you can have it going up and down, or side to side, on a diagonal. You can cross them or do a dotted line. And then we have the curved line family. So these can, same thing, thin or thick, and it can be like an up curve, like a smiley face, or like a kind of a long down curve, like a cane. Could be like an S shape, or a spiral, or a C shape. And then if you put them together, then you get these wavy lines, right? That's just like a whole bunch of curved lines put together. And then the last family is the angle line family. So this is just 2 straight lines that come together. And so you can have like an L or like an upside down L like this, or like a check mark or a V shape or a mountain shape. So any of these. And so I'm pretty confident that you guys can draw all of these, which means that you can draw what we're doing today, because we're just going to put those together one at a time. We're going to be doing guided drawing, which means that I'm going to draw one shape at a time. You're going to be able to see what I'm drawing, and then you are going to draw that same thing. But what's really important is that you watch when I draw it, because then you can see exactly how it's done, and then you can then draw after, and I'll give you time so you can draw that the same. So you have to watch carefully and then just go really slow. We're going to be working with a Sharpie marker today, so no pencils and no erasing, which I know can be scary, but it's all about being a confident artist and not being worried about making mistakes. So that's really, really important. As an artist, lots of artists are afraid to make mistakes. They're afraid to show other people their work. They don't know if other people are going to like it. Even professional artists, like often they don't like what they make, right? But it's important that we continue to make art and we continue to show it, and we're not worried about being too perfect, because any art that's ever become famous and any artist who's ever become famous, they were doing stuff, they were making art that a lot of other people thought was really bad. And that's why they became famous, because they were doing things that were really different and people didn't understand it. And it was different from anything they've ever seen. And sometimes people just don't like things that are different, but those different things actually are what makes, all of our society better. And that's true of art too. So if everyone made art the same, then it would be really, really boring. So don't worry about making mistakes. If you make a mistake with your Sharpie, you just keep on going, and your owl is going to look different from my owl. And it's going to look different from anyone else's owl. And that is how it's supposed to be. So it's not supposed to look exactly like mine. We're just doing a project together, and we're going to be inspired by this owl. So if no one has any questions for Carly, no
questions.
Okay. I am going to ask Karen to put on this camera so you can see what I'm doing. Perfect. Okay. This is perfect. So this is the owl we're drawing. Everyone can see me and hear me and everything. Yeah. And then this is my blank piece of paper. Get this stuff off of here. So I need everyone to have their Sharpie ready, have the cap on the back so it's ready to go. And what I'm going to ask you for is I'm going to ask you to find a spot on your page. So you can see my whole page, right? So I want you to look for this point. So see how it's higher than the middle, right? Can you see that? And it's a little bit more to the left. So you're going to try to find about where that point is on your page and just make a little dot. And then once you have about where that should be, we're going to take this dot and we're going to do a big line. So this line is going to go from here, kind of at an angle. Remember we talked about straight lines, so diagonal straight line. It's going to come up like this to about here. So watch me first. It's going to come up like this and then stop. Okay, from here, we're going to do a curved line, and it's going to curve, for me, it's going to curve all the way to the edge of my page. So you do want this line to go kind of far. So watch first, it's going to curve that way. Okay, now let's go back to our starting point. We're going to make this a tiny little curved line like that. So it's got a little curve on the end. And then we're going to do another straight line. This is going to come up like this. So it comes up a little bit, not as far as this one. So it's going to come up straight to about here. So about as high as this one, but at more of an angle. Okay, and then next we're going to do a curve from this one too. So we're going to curve it. Mine's going to go all the way close to the edge of my page again. So it's going to have this big curve like this. Okay, so now we have a really crazy shape. We're working with Sharpie, so we can't go back. We're going to keep going. The next line we're going to do is actually going to be right underneath this one. So we're going to start it right there, right under our starting point. It's going to come up the same, but it's going to stop right here. So not as long. So we're going to bring it up and stop it. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing the other way. So we're going to come up and then we're just going to stop it before the curve. And then we're going to come back here. So kind of where we have this little dip in the middle. And we're going to do a curved line that's going to come down. So you can watch me first so you can kind of see how big it is. It's going to start touching this line right where that dip is. And we're going to curve it down to there. Okay, then we're going to do a tiny little curved line, very tiny, right at the bottom, like a little hook. And then we're going to have this come up the same, but it's going to be a little bit wider. So it's going to come up just to there. Okay, we're going to come back to our little curve again, our little hook, and we're going to do another line that comes up just to here. All right, and the next spot I want you to find is going to be right here. So if you can kind of find a spot like that, a little bit further out from what we've done. We're going to do a line that follows the line above it. So it's going to go like this. It can be a little bit curved like mine is, or it can be more straight. Then we're going to come to our starting point again, right in this corner. And this is going to be a big curve that comes down and comes up. So it comes down first, and then it comes up and around, and you can leave a little bit of extra room so it doesn't touch quite the end of that first line. Inside here, we're going to put a circle shape. And then we're going to put a little angle line, so kind of like a V right in here inside your circle. Okay, next, we're gonna come over to the other side. We're gonna start about right here. So if you can find that point, we're gonna do a curved line on this side. So this is gonna kind of curve up and down like this. And then we're gonna start just a little bit lower. So we're actually gonna leave some space here and start right there. And we're gonna do a curve that comes straight down and then starts to come up. And it looks like it's almost gonna touch. Now where our first curve ends, right here, we're gonna bring this into a curved line that comes up now. And now we can make these two touch. If they're not quite touching, we can make them touch. Now, right in this corner, it's gonna be kind of attached. We're gonna put a circle shape in here. So right where this is, right where we started, this can be the beginning of our circle shape. And then we can just continue it right into there. And then we have that little V shape again. Can do that right in there. Okay, so your owl might be looking kind of funny right now, just like mine is. Doesn't really look like an owl. Looks kind of crazy, but we're gonna draw like the outside of him now. So he's gonna look a little better. So next, what we're gonna do, let's find this point. So remember you had a straight line and then it turned into a curve. Right at the end of the straight line, that's where we can start. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at where this is gonna end. So we're gonna draw a curved line and it's gonna connect here, but we wanna pay attention to where it ends because we want this to end way over here. So further out than this eye for sure. Once you have those 2 points, then you can just connect them with a curved line like this. And sometimes it helps to kind of practice first without drawing. So just like I'm doing where I go like this just to practice. So you can kind of see it in your mind. Then you can kind of connect it in one smooth motion. Okay, so from here, we're gonna kind of like jump over this little line that you have. And we're gonna do a bunch of lines that are curved and they're gonna come down to the end of your paper. So I'll show you what I mean. So we're gonna jump over to here so you can find that point. And then we're just gonna go like this. We're gonna do curve and then come back a little bit and do a curve. So you have all these curves and they're gonna come down until you hit the edge of your page. And then we're gonna come back up to the top here. And right where this line ended, we can kind of bring it up the same and then just have it kind of fade away like that. So just kind of make it the same as the curve above and just have it end a little bit shorter. And then we're gonna give this guy some fluffy owl ears. So just the same as we did all these curves coming down, we're gonna do some right under here. This is like these big ears. So we're just gonna go and do some of these curves underneath here. And when we add coloring to this, then we can make those look even fluffier. We can add even more. Okay, let's go over to the other side. We're gonna do kind of the same thing. So this is curving around this way. Then we're gonna jump over. And our next line is gonna be right here. We wanna make sure that this, we're gonna continue this down. We wanna make sure that it's gonna go around this eye. So if it's not quite far enough, then we kind of want to bring it further to make sure it's going to come around this eye. So next we're going to do a curve line down really close here. So curved right beside that eye. And he's looking cuter already. Then we're gonna do some fluffy marks. So watch me first. We're gonna go fluffy, fluffy, fluffy. Just a few kind of coming in. So see how they're kind of getting closer to the beak down here. And then we're gonna start, when we get kind of close to the beak, we're gonna start actually curving them the other way. So more like a backwards C shape. We're gonna do a curve right there. And then we can do a few more fluffy marks that same way. So you can go and do some fluffy ones coming down. Okay, so remember, this should go all the way off your page. So all the way to the bottom. If you have to do more, you can do more of these fluffy marks until you get all the way to the bottom of your page. Okay, so let's come up here where we kind of ended, and we're going to take this and continue it a little bit. So curve it around. And then we're going to make some other fluffy marks underneath. So starting kind of at that same point, we can do another fluffy mark with a curved line. And then you can put a couple more in here if you want to. So we can just do a few more fluffy pieces. And then we're going to kind of attach these ears to the head here. So we're going to start on the top of this curve, and we're just going to do a curved line that touches. And let's come over to the other side and do the same thing. Okay, so we're getting really close. The last thing we're going to do is we're just going to put some curved lines in here to kind of show how the feathers are going to go. But then we're really going to draw the feathers with the pastels after. So what I want you to do is think about kind of a line that goes from here and curves to here. So close to under the beak. So it's going to kind of be like this, but we're going to do it in kind of like a dotted line. So we're going to start up here. You can think about this being a curve. right, to the bottom of the beak, and you can hold your finger where you want it to stop. That can help too. And this is where it's going to start. And we're going to go like this. We're going to do a curve and then take a break and then do a curve and take a break. And so you can do 3 like me, or you can do more. If you have to do more to get to that, to your finger, you can do that. And then we're going to move a little bit down. So I'm going to move my finger to about here. So just a little bit down. And I'm going to move my pen just a little bit further down here. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to follow that line, and I'm just going to do a curve and take a break, and then a curve and take a break. And if you have to do more than 3, that's okay. And you're just going to keep doing this all the way down. So I don't have a lot of room, but maybe you did the head a little smaller and then you have more room. So that's okay too. You'll just have like a longer neck. So I am only going to do it one more time until I'm off my page. But you can do it more times all the way down. And then maybe I might have room for one little one in here. Can kind of see I have a little bit of space. Okay, so when you're finished up that is the end of like the Sharpie drawing part. So you can take your Sharpie marker and put the lid back on. And now we're going to use our oil pastels, or you could have crayons, that would be fine too. And we're going to just start to like add some fluffiness and add some detail. So I'll show you, this is like the drawing that I've done. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use these pastels, and we're going to make all of these little fluffy bits. And we're going to layer the pastels to make it kind of look like feathers, make them look fluffy. And then one of the reasons that we're using pastels or crayons will work too, is because they are water resistant. So they're made of oil and crayons are made of wax, and both those things resist water. So when we put water on top, when we put it over here, the water is not going to go on top. It's also not going to make the Sharpie run anywhere. So that's why we use Sharpie also, because you can put water on top and it just stays right in place. And that's the same with the oil pastels. So what we're going to do today is called a resist, because the oil pastels resist the water. So what we're going to do first is start with the dark color. We're going to look for dark colors, and then we're going to look for light colors. So if you have a dark blue or a purple or even a black, that'll work too. And what we're going to start with is these kind of dark areas. So we really want the eyes to stand out and to look like really deep in there. So we're going to start by working with the oil pastel and just going around the eyes, kind of coloring around, just to make sure that they're really going to stand out and be dark. And on the very like corner of the eye, this outside corner, we're going to make this a little bit fatter, so that he's got like really, his eyes are really standing out. If you've ever seen an owl in real life, their eyes are like really round and they really stand out. So that's what we're doing too. We're also going to color inside the circle, but not inside your little angle line. So leave that white. We're going to color inside that circle there. Ooh, you can see it's already standing out. So maybe your owl, like, you know, some owls look sad, sometimes they look scary, sometimes they look angry, sometimes they look kind of funny. It doesn't matter, like everyone's is going to have a different personality. And so it's kind of cool when you do your coloring that you can make that personality show on your owl. even like when you look at your friends or someone else who did it, it's going to look totally different from yours. And theirs might have a totally different personality. It might be like a tiny little head. You might look like a little baby owl. Okay, next thing we're going to do after this eye is we're going to go underneath. So we're going to fill in underneath this line. And we're going to do some fluffy marks. So remember how we do fluffy marks, just little curves. And they're going to come down right underneath that eye. See how I'm leaving some white space? And then I'm doing a few little fluffy marks. So little tiny curves are the fluffy marks. And then we're going to continue up. So continue right underneath this line. We're going to follow it. And then when we get up here, we're going to do more of these fluffy marks. And owls have super fluffy ears. They're like old men that have really hairy ears inside. We're going to do all these fluffy marks just like we did with the Sharpie, but even more. And if you have to take your page or your board and you have to turn it to get some of these like fluffy marks, you can definitely do that. Okay, so next, let's just make the top of this line stand out. So we're just going to kind of outline the top of this line a little bit. We're going to color in the top of this ear and his little head. We can kind of color that a little bit right in the corner. And let's continue this line. We're going to continue it all the way up here. And we're going to kind of do the same thing on the other side. So let's continue this all the way up. And let's continue it all the way underneath. We're kind of just making this a little bit darker. And then when we get here, we can do those same fluffy marks underneath. Then we can fill in on top of the ear, that little spot. And we can just make the top of the headline a little bit darker too with the pastel. Okay, let's come into this eye now. So we're doing the same kind of thing. We're going to fill in that circle, but leave the angle line white. And then we're going to make the outside darker. And right between the eye and the beak here, we can put a little bit of some fluffy marks in here. And we can make it a little bit darker on the bottom of that eye too. Okay, so let's come to the beak now. And what we want to do is we're going to make the beak lines dark, coming down and then coming up. These are all going to be kind of darker. And right at the top of the beak here, we're going to make that dark. As we come down, we want this to stay a little bit light because like the light might be shining on it. And we might have what's called a highlight here. So you can see on this one, he's got a highlight where the light is shining, and that's what's making it look a little bit more 3D. So we want to leave that part white, but we can make the bottom part a little bit darker. You can just lightly fill that in a little bit. And then we can put a few more, not too many, but a few more fluffy lines in here if you want your two spots to connect a little bit more. Okay, and then before we move on, you can have the choice, if you want, you could put some eyelashes on him or her. It's totally up to you. So if you wanted to kind of put some eyelashes on him or her, you could do like make a little curve here. And that can look kind of nice. And same with the other side, you could put another little curve on top if you wanted to. Totally up to you. And then let's go up to this top part. So the top part of the owl has this pattern on it, if you can kind of see. So how we're going to do that is we're going to come to the corner and we're just going to do back and forth scribbles like this. So you can make like just back and forth scribbles in a tiny little, almost like a squarish shape. And then we're going to leave some white space and move over. And then we're going to do it again. And you're just going to follow this top curving line, just go a little bit lower. And just do these little scribbles. And then you're going to leave some space and go one row down and do the exact same thing. And you just keep doing that until that whole section is full. So you could have more than me or less, doesn't matter. And it also doesn't matter if they line up perfectly with the ones above. They can just be their own little line too. Okay, so when you're finished that, we're just going to add some dark right under here. So in between, we're going to leave white right above the eye, but then underneath this line, we can add some of those fluffy marks. And then we're just going to kind of outline some of this owl coming down. We're just going to kind of outline it to make sure that our watercolor doesn't go inside. So you're just going to kind of go over top of all these lines that you did with the pastel on the outside, on both sides. Okay, so the same way that we did the pattern on the top of the head, we're going to do some more pattern to show that this is feathers in here. So we're going to come to your first curved line and we're just going to go and just scribble following that line, just like that. And we're going to do that on all of them. So you go down and then just scribble back and forth and follow that line that you made. And you can see that my scribbles aren't really close together or anything. So yours can be the same. They don't have to be really like perfect. You can just kind of hold your oil pastel lightly and just scribble right inside that area. Okay, so we're getting close to being finished with this color. Next, all we have to do is add a whole bunch of these fluffy lines, make him look even more fluffy than he already looks. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna start up here. Remember that when you do these fluffy lines, you can hold your oil pastel a little bit lighter. So when we do these outside ones, we're kind of pressing a little bit harder. We're kind of filling it in, right? We're filling in spots. When we do these fluffy marks, you can hold it quite lightly and just do a whole bunch, but like you're kind of just tickling your paper a little bit. So coming up to this eye, we're gonna do some lines, some fluffy marks that are coming out. Do you see this? So they're gonna come out like this, all the way down, tiny little fluffy ones. Then we're gonna come to this other eye, and these lines are gonna come out kind of like doing the eyelashes if you did them. So they're gonna kind of come out like this, but they're gonna be these really light, fluffy lines coming out this way. And you can do it until you connect with some of the lines that we've already done, coming down. And then this next part depends how long your beak is. Sometimes people have a short beak and it ends right there, which is okay. But if you have room between here and the bottom of your beak, then we need to do some more to kind of show where his like fluffy neck is going to be. So right at the bottom of the beak, right beside it, we can do a few more coming up this way, kind of in a curve like that. And same on the other side. Okay. And next, we're going to do fluffy lines in here, kind of like in his chest. So where you have this line going with the pattern, we're just going to follow it, but we're just going to do some little fluffy lines in here. And we're going to do the same thing with all of the lines that you have. So we're just going to continue them coming around. And then the last part is coming up here underneath the ear here. So this side, you can have some fluffy lines here that are kind of just connecting with the outside. Just to make his outside feathers look a little bit fluffier. Okay, and when you're ready, that's actually it for the dark color, and we can move on to our second color. But does anyone have questions about this yet? Nothing yet? Okay,
Jay, one quick question.
yeah.
How do you come up with your guided drawings? Just because you have so many different ones?
Yeah, that's a
What
good question.
inspires you to do
Yeah.
that?
Well, I'm really inspired by like local animals that sometimes I see, or I really think it's interesting that animals exist in our environment, even though we like live in houses and we just have little backyards. Um, you know, animals exist in these environments. So you can see deer, we've seen moose here before. There apparently is a bobcat in our area, which is kind of scary because we have like 2 cats that like to go outside. But yeah, so like even though we separate ourselves from nature a little bit, because we have to live in houses and we have to have streetlights and we have to have roads, you can't really separate yourself from nature and from the animals, and they come back. And I find that like really inspiring to me. It makes me feel really good when I see animals, like wild animals in the city. Yeah, so I am inspired by that in my own art, and then I make paintings that are kind of about that. And then I'll use like some of my paintings to think of a guided drawing that, you know, anyone can do. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so yeah, if you have a second color, this one should be a little bit lighter. It's better if it's lighter because then all of these areas stay dark, and you can see how it looks kind of cool when the areas are darker. So your second color should be a little bit lighter. I'm just using a lighter blue, so the same color, just lighter. But if you want, you could use a different color. The colors might just mix a little bit. So it's up to you, you can decide. With the second color, we're just going to use it to blend some of this in. So we're actually going to go, the first thing we're going to do is go over all of our fluffy marks just with this color too. So let's go over any marks that are those fluffy marks and just add a little bit of the second color in. And you can make some of these marks like a little bit longer if you want with the second color. Because that way the dark kind of transitions into the light a little bit if you make the marks a little bit longer with your second color. So I have fluffy marks on the side. Don't forget your edges, like the edges of his face and stuff. And underneath his ears. So we're doing the same type of fluffy mark, like just going back and forth with those curved lines. Oh, and in here, I almost forgot, down in his chest here. When we get to this pattern, if you've already done it, it's totally fine. But once we get here, we can kind of go, instead of doing like the fluffy mark, we can kind of go on top and just lightly go back and forth a little bit. And we can actually connect these a little bit. So your dark should still be there, but you can just kind of go over top lightly and connect this whole section just like this. And you can go a little bit further into the white, so your light blue can be a little bit kind of bigger if you want it to be. That way you have some parts that are showing kind of light blue, some parts that are darker. And that just makes your drawing more interesting because there's more going on. There's more colors, there's more textures. So we can do the same kind of thing on the tops of the ears here. So we already have them dark, but we can actually take your lighter color and just really lightly go on top of them. And that can just make it a little bit more interesting and like they're kind of blending in. So that would be kind of blending. You can also blend by smudging with your finger a little bit. But for this drawing, what we're mostly going to do is blend by putting lighter colors on top. And because like oil pastels are so soft that they will just blend together if you have a lighter color. Okay, and then coming up to this pattern on the head, we can do a similar type of thing where we're just really lightly gonna color so it's not really covering the blue, the dark blue, but it's just kind of blending it in a little bit more. So really lightly, lots of white spaces in between, that's okay. And so when you blend things too, it looks like there's like more layers. So like there's more layers to the feathers, there's more layers to colors. Just like when you look at a person and their, you know, their hair usually just isn't one color, it's got lots of different colors in it because the light is hitting it and it might have like some really light places and some darker places and some red places. The next thing that we're going to do with this blue, we're going to start to work on the beak. So we're going to do some blending in here too. So remember, we want to leave this part white, but we can kind of go on top of the darker blue a little bit, leaving that part white, and very lightly go on top so it doesn't cover it completely, but very lightly, we can just blend that in a little bit more. So on any part where you feel like your second color covered too much, it's totally fine. You can just go back on with the dark. So if you do your beak and you're like, oh, I covered up too much, then you can come back with the darker color and just go right on top. So don't worry about that. Okay, and the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna color inside the eye, but I want you to just color right in here. So you're leaving space around the circle and you're leaving space around the outside. We can blend into the top a little bit on top of your darker color. But we're just keeping it right in here. And this is just going to really help his eye to really pop out because it's got dark spaces and really white spaces. When you want the eyes to pop out, you have to make sure to keep the white, especially right inside the pupil in the middle here, this little, our angle line. If that stays white and it's right against the black, then it looks really like it's popping out and like the eyes have a reflection on them. Okay, so we can do a similar thing on the other side. So you can color right in this corner. And then same thing, we can color in here, but we're just going to go around the circle shape, leaving some white and then leave some white before the outside too. And look how cute he's looking. Maybe your guys's looks like, you know, looks grumpy and not cute, but that's okay too. I think grumpy owls can be kind of funny. And then the last thing that we can do with our second color is you can just color in part of this. So that's all white. You probably want to leave some spots of it a little bit lighter, but you can just add a little bit of blue just lightly in there so it's not so white and standing out so much. So after we finish every color, it's important to look at your whole picture. So before we move on, look at your whole picture all at once and say, what could be different, or what do I like? Or, and then this is your opportunity. When you look at the whole thing all together, then you can change it, because yours might be different than mine. So I might have done something, but you might want yours to be a little bit different. And that's totally fine. You can add more. So you can add more dark at this point, or you can add more of your second color anywhere that you feel like you need it. So maybe you feel like your pattern disappeared and you want more dark in here, definitely do that. It's important when you're making art that even if you're working on a little piece, you're always looking at the whole picture, because sometimes you look at a little tiny part and you don't realize, and you work on that for a long time. You work on a really tiny part, and then when you step back and look at the whole thing, you're like, oh, I worked so long on that part and it doesn't even fit with the rest of my picture. So it's important to always look at the whole thing too. Okay, whenever you're finished that part, looking at your whole picture and making any decisions about it that you need to, we're going to move on to our next color. So I have this light brown, which is the same one that I used in this one. You can see I just have little bits of light brown. And what this color does is it just adds one more layer. So it actually isn't really working to blend anything together, because these two colors are kind of about the same. Like, one's not darker and one's not lighter. They're just different colors. Whereas our first color was really dark, but these two are kind of the same in tone. So it's just kind of adding one other colors to make your drawing more interesting. So it could be you could use a purple or a pink that's kind of the same as the blue, not darker, not lighter. It could be a green, or you could do a brown like me, totally up to you. And we're just going to add this brown in some places where we added the light blue, and you guys can decide on your own where you want to put some of it. For me, I'm just going to put some right in here beside the beak where the blue is, a little bit underneath, again where that light blue is. Along the side of the face. So you can work with me and see what I'm doing, or you can look at your own drawing and decide that you want this color to be somewhere else. Like maybe you just want the pattern on him to be a little bit of a different color. And you can use several colors if you want. You could use a pink and a purple, or a green and a red, or something like that if you wanted to. And you could make under his ears, you could add one more color. Inside his eyes, you could add another color to that light blue and have them kind of blend together. So as long as you're leaving the dark where it is and the white where it is, he's still gonna look pretty good. You're just adding other colors into that light blue area. You might get some interesting combinations too, because when you go on top, sometimes the colors blend together, right? So then you can see how the colors mix. Like this brown has a little bit of yellow in it. So you can see that when I'm going on top of the light blue and the light blue is really thick, it's actually turning it a little bit green, which is interesting. Then you have even like one more color. So I'm also bringing some of my brown into a little bit of my white space. You don't want to cover your white space because we want some areas to be dark and some areas to be light so that it looks realistic. Because in real life, you always have light. You can't see without light. So either it's light in your house, right? Or there's light from outside. So there always is going to be light spots and dark spots. But you can bring some of your third color here into some of the white spots a little bit, and then you can see it a little bit more too. So after you've done the hard work of like using having light spots and dark spots, then you can kind of, be even more creative with this other color and put it in some extra places. Or you could make the eyes a different color, like you could put purple in there and kind of blend it into your blue. And remember, if you cover too much, you can always go back. Even if you cover too much white, we have a white oil pastel. And it's a little bit harder because it's going to blend into your colors, but you can still make things lighter after. So after you finish with your third color, or how many ever colors you decided to put in there, just make sure again that you look at your whole picture all together and decide, okay, do I need to add any of these other colors that I did before? Do I need more dark? Do I need more light? Okay. I decided that I needed more like light blue in mine, so that's just what I'm doing right now. Just adding a little bit more.
We have about 20 minutes left, Jay.
Okay, sounds good. I think we'll finish for sure because we just have one other color left, which is white. Not really a color, but what white is really good for in oil pastel is that we can use it to blend the other colors together, but it's also really fun to use as a resist. So remember I talked about resist, which we're gonna do with the watercolor. And so what I've done in this one is I use this white oil pastel to make stars in the sky. And so you just have to make sure that you're putting it on like really thick. So you got to kind of press hard so that when you put water on top, it's not going to cover. You'll see what I mean. It's going to kind of resist it. So you don't have to put stars in your sky if you don't want. You could put something else. You could put like a moon, or it could not be a night scene, and you could just put interesting things. Maybe there are bugs out there, or I don't know, anything that you want, a spaceship, I don't know, anything that you want. Depends how much room you have, I guess, too, around the outside. So I am gonna put some of these stars in here by just doing dots. So I'm going to use the oil pastel. You won't be able to see it because it's white, but I'm going to use the oil pastel and just press hard and go in like little circles to make sure that it's going to be in there. And some can be small and some can be big if you're doing the same thing as me, or you can do your own thing. And you can use other colors in the background too. Like white is just cool because it kind of is invisible and then it shows up. But you could use white and another color, or you can use a different combination. Totally up to you. He could just have like an abstract background of like polka dots or anything that you want. You can kind of see it, yeah. If you like hold my drawing, or if you hold your own drawing and you kind of show it in the light, then you can kind of see where those spots are because they kind of glisten. Okay, once you have your background kind of figured out, we're gonna add white to some other parts too. We're gonna add white actually around our owl, and that way he's gonna like pop out from our background. So I'm just gonna take it and I'm gonna kind of press hard. And it's okay if it blends in with your dark a little bit. I know you can't really see what I'm doing, but I'm just pressing hard and just following the outside lines so that he's kind of gonna have a white halo around him. So top of the head too. And we can do some white coming into his fluffy ears. So I'm going to start on the outside and then just put some lines coming in. And it's going to blend some of the other colors, but that's kind of cool, actually. And then let's talk about where we can use some white. So right on the tip of the beak, you want to make sure that your white is clean, first of all. So make sure there's no blue on it. If there is, just wipe it away. Or if you're using a crayon, just color somewhere else so that it kind of goes off and it's clean. And then right on the tip of the beak, we can put some white in here. And then you can even go into some of the blue and blend it a little bit if you want to. You can see how easy they kind of blend together if you're using oil pastels. If you're using crayons, they'll still kind of cover. Not quite as like blendy, but it still works. We can use white to blend our colors into this part going up around the eyes. You can see how like creamy the white is when you put it on. Everything just blends together. You can also add some inside the eyes here if you want. So go kind of where you have the white already. You can just put the white and it can kind of blend it all together. Again, make sure that it's clean. And every time you use it and it gets a little dirty, then just wipe it on your paper towel. I'm even doing a little bit in that white in the pupil, but you don't have to, you can just leave that too. I'm gonna do some white above the eyes in here just to make this really blended where we kind of left it a little bit white. And then for the rest, you can choose how much you want to blend with the white and how much you just want to leave it. So I'm gonna kind of start to just make those same type of fluffy marks, kind of where the white is already. And I'm just gonna make it look a little bit more blended in here by doing that. So I am going over top of some of the stuff that we already have in here a little bit. And when you get to these big white patches at the bottom, you can kind of do that back and forth. Scribble. And you can choose for yourself, like maybe you want some parts to be lighter and this is where the white is really good for that. You can kind of go over top, make parts lighter, or blend things together. Same with the pattern on the top of the head. You can go like in between and kind of do some blending if you want, or you can just leave it if you really like how yours is. You don't have to use too much of the white. And then you can just do a final look when you're finished with the white, decide, oh, like I went too far. I'm gonna add some more dark, or I'm gonna add some more of this color, and you totally can do that. At any step, you can go back to any of the other steps. Okay, so I think I'm happy with my owl, and the last thing that we actually just have to do is add the watercolor. So I have my palette here. I have a whole bunch of colors, and you can use different colors if you want. So we did some drawing in the owl, right? But you could use now some paint to paint inside your owl, and it'll just fill up any little white spots that you have. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then we're also going to use a different color for the outside. And then you're really going to see that resist. So first, let's do this outside so we can make sure that that's done. I have water, I have paper towel, I have a brush, and my paint. So I'm going to take my brush and dip it in the water. And then let's see, here we go. I'm going to use black because I'm doing a night sky. Yours can be different, or you can have different color. Like you could have purple up here and black down here, anything that you want. So when you take your brush and it's in the water, you just go around in the palette like this. So go around in circles and get your brush really loaded with paint. And then we have to test it. Let's see. So I'm just going to go on top. Oh yeah, that's working. Oh, can't quite see it. I'll keep going. So hopefully this works for you, where when you go over top, you can go right over all of those white marks that you may have made, and they just show up because the paint doesn't stick to it. It doesn't cover it. Anytime you're kind of running out like this, that just means you gotta get more paint. So you dip it in the water again, and you go in your paint again. If you want your color to be lighter, then you need to add more water to it. And if you feel like your paint is covering up some of these things, it might just be too thick. So you can add a little more water to it. And then it should go on top. The other thing that would make it not go on top is if you just didn't quite press hard enough with your oil pastel. So if that's happening, you can go back to some other places and try to press really hard. And you see how we did that like white outline around the owl, and now we can just paint right over, and we don't have to worry about going around the owl and being careful because the oil pastel just resists it. So you can do your own thing. You can do multiple, like more colors. When this is dry, you can't do it when it's wet, but when it's totally dry, you could go back on top with oil pastel again, like if some of your stuff isn't showing up or if you want to add more things after. Just has to be dry enough. And we can go right on top of the tape. You notice that, so that's why we have the tape too. Go right on top, and then we're going to get a nice border in the end. Okay, so I'm done painting my background. But what I'm going to do now is just really clean my brush really well in the water. And then I'll just show you, if you want to add a watercolor inside your owl, you can do that too. Just depends, how much shows up depends on how much oil pastel you put down. So let's say I wanted to, I don't know, maybe I could add orange in there just for fun. You want to make sure that it's watery. And then see if I go in my owl like this, it still can resist in some parts where you have your oil pastel. But if you have any little parts that are still paper, it can fill those in and kind of show up in there. You probably don't want to do this with a dark color, so make sure your color is light, which means lots of water. And once you have some of those little pieces filled in, there might be some kind of like paint that's not really seeping into the paper because it's on top of the oil pastel. So if that's happening, then you can just take your paper towel and dab it a bit. And then it'll just get any paint that's just sitting on top. With watercolor, it's pretty easy to take color away too. So if you do something and you really hate it, you just clean your brush and you take just water by itself and you go back and forth like this and then dab it with the paper towel, and it should get a lot lighter. You can do it like a couple times and it should take a lot of color away. So you can see now I just have like a bit of that light orange kind of showing through. You don't have to do that, but that's something that you can try to. Okay. So we're pretty much done. The last thing that I want to show you, remember you guys can pause the video so you can take your time and finish up and make any changes. Once it's all dry, you can even go back with oil pastel if you want to change things, totally up to you. But before we kind of throw it back to Karen here, I just want to show you how to take off this tape if you have yours taped down. So if yours is taped down, you have to wait until it's completely dry. So don't do what I'm doing, don't do it right now. But when you're ready to take it off, you just want to make sure you're taking off the tape that's on top first. And you want to pull it at an angle like this, very, very slowly. And see how it's going to give you a beautiful like white border? It's going to be really nice. If you start to pull off your tape and it really starts to like rip your paper, this probably won't happen. But if you leave it for a few days, then it might. Then what you got to do is just blow dry the tape a little bit, and it'll just make it hot. And then the glue is going to be warm, and then it's going to come off more easily. So that's a little trick. But yeah, wait till it's completely dry, and then your paper won't curl or anything like that. And yeah, that's all I have for you. So I'm going to give it over to you, Karen.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. I know I'm still not done mine.
Okay.
I need to go back and catch up on, but we really want to see all of your owls out there. So make sure to share and tag Jupe School. It was a really great workshop. Thank you, Jay. Thank you all for being here with us. We will see you in October. We have a few more surprises to come. Have a great day, everyone. Show us those owls. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.